Hello, I'm Kevin Harris and welcome to letyourproperty.tv. Joining me here today we have Paul Champlina from Landlord Action and Eddie Hooker from Total Landlord Insurance. And today we are talking about nightmare tenants. Guys, thanks for coming in.
Well,
nightmare tenants, there must be, well, a landlord's worst nightmare, presumably.
Yes, they are a complete landlord's worst nightmare. You know, you could be profiting or trying to run a portfolio and one bad tenant can wipe out, you know, all your profit that you've done.
And what sort of common problems do you find as a landlord?
Well, I mean, you know, you could have a tenant that just doesn't care.
Yeah.
That doesn't care about their credit rating. You can have a professional bad tenant that goes from one property to another and just dupes a landlord with fake referencing. You can have a tenant that falls in a hard time that ends up losing their job and they have to apply for local housing allowance. You can have a couple that split up. We've had the most extreme cases we've had at Landlord Action. You name it, we've had it. We've had murders, we've had suicides, we've had cannabis factories. We even had a case actually which happened last year where a tenant went to court and her defence was that the property was haunted. No. And she said that there was a ghost in her house and she wouldn't pay the rent. Obviously we got the court order, but I'm just saying, you name it, we've heard it. But most of the time it's tenants just not paying the rent.
Yeah, exactly. And I suppose in that situation, identifying a troublesome tenant early on is what you got to do.
Yes, yeah. Referencing is very, very important.
Yeah.
But be wary of going back for references to previous landlords because landlords can be canny and they could be passing on a problem.
It's become very, very competitive in this marketplace now. From when I first started, we have the attitude where it has been a bit of a dog eats dog, where a landlord won't want to go to Landlord Action and pay almost £1,000 in fees and wait 5 months and have lost rent. They're past the problem on. Right. But if you're wise with regard to your referencing, with your 3 months bank statement, your employer's reference, your ID, you know, copy passport, driving licence, and you know, even a copy of a tenancy agreement for their previous tenancy that they were renting at, utility bills, you know,
do your homework.
Do your homework, and what you're doing is you're putting a piece
dig a bit further back as well. Maybe get a couple of references
together.
Yeah.
You're putting a jigsaw together because also that information will help you if the tenant absconds owing you money further down the line. You've got information to help you try and trace them at a later date.
Meet them as well.
Yeah, meet them, gut feelings and all that.
Sit down and as Paul says, if your gut's saying walk away. Walk away.
Right.
Trust your instincts.
But if you're asking for some referencing, and they're saying I can't give that to you or this or that, whatever, for me, I'd rather property be vacant for another 6, 7, 8 days or whatever it may be, and just do it. And that's the biggest problem a landlord has. They get desperate. They're worried about voids. They need to pay the rent. I need to pay my mortgage. And it's those landlords that I find get stung more than the normal.
Right.
And take a deposit.
Yeah. Obviously, always take a deposit.
Always take a deposit. Some of these no deposit agencies and insurance policies out there. A deposit, hard cash in your bank account is always very, very important.
And I suppose, Eddie, what can you do? I mean, obviously taking a deposit is one thing, but what can you do to protect yourself from loss of income or loss of, you know?
Well, you can buy what's called a rent guarantee policy, which will pay up to £25,000 worth of loss of rent. They're about £100 every year.
Which they have to pass the reference.
They have to pass the reference.
If not, they can't get insurance.
That seems to be a small price to pay for a lot of peace of mind.
That's correct, and read the small print because with insurance policies you have to follow procedure, and it staggers me and presumably you, Paul, the number of landlords that don't know what the procedures are, and then they fall foul of that procedure, and then the insurance policy won't pay out
because they served the notice wrong, or they Generally, it's because the amount of times that we have where they've served the notice wrong, and that's the problem. It going forward to court starts again, and of course that's why insurance companies will knock your claim back.
And finally, on deposits, we've mentioned you must protect deposits within a government scheme. If you don't, you cannot serve what's called a Section 21 eviction notice.
Right. Okay.
So you can't do anything. You're stuck with them until
the biggest problem now in the industry has been the deposit schemes and and we're still now getting landlords now that called us up and say I want to evict a tenant, and I said, well, we say, have you protected the deposit? And the law came in 2007. They wouldn't know what deposit scheme if it's bitten on the nose. And it's one of the most fundamental changes that's happened in landlording in the last years.
Interesting.
You know,
Go to our website. We've
Yeah,
got huge amounts of information on tenancy deposits because we operate mydeposits.co as well.
Great stuff. Yeah, well worth having a look. And of course, I suppose you wouldn't start playing a game if you didn't know the rules. So learn the rules,
Exactly.
and play the game, and best
it's an
of luck.
expensive game. You get it wrong.
Exactly. Guys, thanks ever so much. We only
You're
had a
welcome.
short time for this one. So thanks there to Eddie and Paul for joining us, and thanks to you for watching along wherever you are right now. If you want to find out more about Total Landlord Insurance, get yourself logged on to allthews.totallandlordinsurance.co.uk, and of course check out the Total Landlord Facebook page and like them on that Facebook page as well, because that could see you winning a year's subscription to Property Investor News. Best of luck and goodbye.